Hey everyone, and welcome back to What Did I Miss? Where today I'm going to be breaking down the mind-blowing 4th episode of WandaVision, where we get a ton of answers as to what has been going on since Avengers Endgame. I know a bunch of people checked out of the show because of the sitcom style, and I won't be surprised if they all come back after word of what happened in this episode comes out, because for me it reminded me more of a Marvel-style movie than any series Marvel has produced to date. We also got some theories that have been going around since the first episode debunked, as well as got a better insight into what the characters working with S.W.O.R.D. have been doing. But for me, the biggest reveal once again happens towards the end of the episode and hints that the heroes of the MCU might have a big problem on their hands in the form of one of their former comrades. I also think we saw the origin story of a new hero as well due to what occurs during the events of this episode. Here, I'll break down the episode as well as go over some backstory on the characters and events involved, while also giving you some new theories I have about what is to come. I've also released quite a few videos on WandaVision already, so you can check those out if you want to binge. And I will say that very few of my theories have been struck down as of yet. If you do enjoy this video, please hit that like button and subscribe bell so you will get notified when I have new WandaVision videos out. Okay, so let's get into the 4th episode of WandaVision entitled We Interrupt This Program. So obviously there will be big spoilers here. If you have not watched all 4 episodes of WandaVision, go do that. And I would also suggest a watch or rewatch of the movie Age of Ultron, because I really think this show is going to keep calling back to it, as it was the first full appearance of Wanda and the Vision. The episode begins with Monica returning from the snap or blip or whatever you want to call it, but it was when everyone was snapped out of existence at the end of Avengers Infinity War and then were brought back in Avengers Endgame. I really love this whole sequence, and as I mentioned earlier, to me this felt like a feature film. It was really terrifying to imagine the gravity of this actual experience for everyone involved. Not only the people coming back, but the people that never left. We also learned that Monica was at her mother's bedside at the time of the blip and was expecting her to come home from surgery, only for her to learn that she had died during her absence. I love that Marvel showed us this side of the incident like this, because you really only glossed over it in Endgame and then again in a Spider-Man Far From Home. Honestly, it was really smart to show this off in this series, because you really couldn't pull off the horror of it in a more lighthearted movie like Spider-Man. We hear her voice as a child as well as her mother and Brie Larson as Captain Marvel before Monica comes back, and it was again very sad to hear her mom say that she can't leave her daughter, and then having her daughter wake up to find her gone. I honestly really like Teyonah Parris as Monica Rambeau, as I think she really pulled off each personality of her role very well so far, as I totally bought her in the 50s and 60s settings, and now totally buy her as a badass agent of S.W.O.R.D. I also thought that her shirt being the same colors as Captain Marvel was a nice callback to her introduction into the MCU in said movie, in which she helped Carol Danvers design her costume. We then get our first look at S.W.O.R.D. as Monica arrives at work to find her badge doesn't work anymore. I thought that it was sad that as she's walking in, you can see TVs that are talking about how the blip has brought people back and that people are happy and having parades, when Monica obviously lost someone and will not get them back, which is no doubt why she's back to work so quickly. She meets with the new director who has taken over for her mother, and he gets her up to speed. I picked up a couple of interesting bits of information from their conversation. 1. It seems like S.W.O.R.D. used to be more like its comic counterpart and dealt mainly with issues in space, but acting director Hayward reveals they are now more concerned with AI and nanotech. But with what happened in Avengers Age of Ultron, this group is not trying to create AI, as Monica astutely points out. Their mission is to observe and respond to living weapons, or more specifically, powered individuals. This confirms how they have taken over for S.H.I.E.L.D. in the MCU and why. The first mission Monica is put on is to assist an FBI agent with some of S.W.O.R.D.'s technology. The director also states that Monica is limited to grounded duty due to a protocol put in place for people that return from the blip. I thought this was a nice touch because it is revealed that the protocol was put in by her mother. So it's obvious that her mother knew that when Monica came back that she would still need to protect her. Monica arrives in New Jersey and meets with James E. Woo. Another nice touch, if you notice, he does the same trick with his card that he was trying to learn the last time we saw him in the movie Ant-Man and the Wasp. James states that he had a meeting with a witness this morning and that he is missing. He states that not only is he missing, but that his known associates no longer remember him or the town, which is confirmed by 2 officers from the town of Eastview who are standing in front of the Westview sign. I believe that this is a sign of Wanda's control over people, as if you remember in the movie Age of Ultron, she was not only able to put whole scenarios into people's minds, but she also was able to affect the people of Sokovia and get them to leave the town before the final battle with Ultron. I think that she is doing something similar here and is using the same power to suggest to people around the town to forget that it exists. A clue to this is that the cop calls James a G-Man, which is definitely not a term still used and is more something you would hear in the 50s and 60s, which I think is a sign that the magic used on him was the same used on the townspeople to get them to speak the same vernacular of the time. Even James seems to be affected by the magic, as when Monica asks why he has not just walked into the town, he states that it doesn't want him to. Monica goes and gets the drone, which is obviously a more advanced version of the helicopter we saw earlier in the season. Not only are the colors the same, but the logo and number 57 were also on the toy. She loses the drone at the barrier of the town and investigates, only to get pulled in herself. This triggers a massive response from S.W.O.R.D., which reintroduces us to the character Darcy Lewis, played by Kat Dennings. When asked by the acting director, she states that they are safe limit from the radiation for now. This obviously sets up a bit of foreshadowing that this issue with Westview could and will expand if they are not able to contain it. Darcy is able to tune the signal coming from Westview into something that can be viewed with a tube television on the outside. I really wonder why this has occurred, and I almost wonder if this is someone trying to help Wanda by getting her help from the outside. S.W.O.R.D. readies another agent to travel into Westview, this time using the sewer system underneath the town. This is obviously the character we saw come out of the sewer in episode 2 in a beekeeper's outfit, and which I correctly hypothesized that this was the case. The next scene really puzzles me, because we see that the data that S.W.O.R.D. has on the town of Westview looks to me to be structured like the shape of a hexagon. When I saw that at first, I thought we finally had an answer as to why they keep showing up, but later in the episode, James is asking the question of why they are there, so apparently we still don't know why the hexagons keep showing up. Although, it looks like perhaps the hexagon is the perimeter of the barrier, which could mean it does tie into my original theory about the villain, and I will leave that video here if you want to watch it. Suddenly, Darcy is able to get a clear signal, and we see the events of the first episode of the series on an old TV. We also see that it was her hands we saw at the end of said episode. Darcy obviously knows a lot about Infinity Stones from her time spent working with Jane Foster, and all she wants now is a cup of coffee. But if you notice, at about the 12:06 mark in the show when she walks in, there is a coffee maker on her right. I'm sorry I couldn't get a screenshot, but you know, Disney. She sits down less than 20 feet away from the thing. So while it was probably an oversight by the production team, it is also kind of funny if you realize she could have literally walked over and gotten herself a cup at any time. They start to identify individuals trapped in Westview by comparing their recent driver's licenses. You can also see James Wu working on a whiteboard and coming up with SEO optimized YouTube video listing questions that they are trying to answer. In a blink and you miss it scene at 17:46 in the show, you can see a headline titled, "What is behind this?" And underneath it, it looks like it says extraterrestrial and Skrulls. I went over this theory in another video as well, and I will link it here. I have also heard a theory that the people in the town of Westview are dead, and Wanda rose them from the grave when she did Vision. But I think this scene debunks that theory, because if they were dead, you would think that would have been mentioned, and also all of the driver's licenses we see are current. So you'd think that if these people had died over the years, the copies of their licenses would be different styles and not all seem to be current. It is also interesting that Agnes does not have a driver's license listed under her picture. This at least confirms that she is not just another member of the town. Darcy plans to break into the radio signal and try and make contact with Wanda, which we saw in the second episode. We then see the agent still crawling through the sewer trying to make it into the town. Once he crosses the barrier, his clothes change and his tether cord turns into a jump rope. If you notice when they pull the cord back, the head still looks like a jump rope and seems to have some of the same energy as the barrier, as it was on the other side of the barrier before it was pulled back. That will be important later on in the episode. Darcy and Jimmy then witness Wanda give birth with Monica's help, and Monica mentions Ultron. The scene once again resets as it did when they were able to make contact through the radio, another sign Wanda is controlling this. We then see the completion of the scene that we did not see before, in which Wanda violently uses her powers to remove Monica from this reality. Wanda once again resets as Vision walks in, but is gray and looks as he did when he died. His face changes back, and Wanda says she has everything under control. Now, I want to break this last scene down because I think a lot happened here. First, I think this is confirmation that Wanda has broke bad and will be a new threat going forward. The look in her eyes has changed, and now she is so broken that she is willing to stay in this reality at all costs. I believe that at a certain level she is completely aware of what is going on and what she has done, but does not care anymore. She has faced too much loss and heartbreak in her life and doesn't feel the need to censor herself or what she wants any longer. I think that this is a nice touch story-wise to have Monica lose her mother during the snap, as she can now at least somewhat relate to Wanda losing a loved one. While I do think that there are evil puppeteers pulling her strings, and again, if you want to watch that video, I will link it, I think that she has fallen to the dark side and will be someone that the heroes of the MCU will have to deal with. Speaking of heroes, I firmly believe that we saw the creation of a brand new superpowered hero in this episode, and that is Monica Rambeau as the hero Photon. Of course, the episode points out that Photon was her mother's call sign, and Monica will no doubt take this on as an alias if needed. The main reason I believe this is that in the episode it was confirmed that anything that breaks the barrier into Westview changes to fit the style of the times, like the drone helicopter turning into a toy and the agent in the hazmat suit turning into a man in a beekeeper suit. Monica herself changed into Geraldine while she was there, but when she was violently thrown from Westview and breached the barrier, she's still in the same outfit that she was in Westview, and her body is still glowing with the same distortion that is found on the barrier. In the comics, she's able to manipulate energy and matter, which is similar to what is happening in the town of Westview. I believe that when she was removed from here by Wanda's powers, it somehow allowed whatever power is fueling this reality to meld with her. This would also be similar to how Captain Marvel gained her powers in the MCU after an explosion of power by an Infinity Stone infused with her body. Well, that is my theory, but you let me know, what did I miss? I would love to hear your theories in the comments and also what you thought of this last episode. Thank you for joining me. Please hit that like button if you haven't, and I will see you next time on What Did I Miss?